All righty. Where did we leave Nebuchadnezzar last week?
Last year, I don't know where you left them last year.
You've been doing that thing long. See?
Where did we leave him? What was he doing when we left him last week?
He had a dream? No.
No, we had finished.
We had finished
We
that.
had finished Easter.
Okay, I'm off, I'm sorry, I'm not sure where, the one you just gave me, I'm not sure where it fits in, I think I'm missing a couple.
He was saying that God is the true God.
Lord of
Voted
lords,
Daniel.
King of
Kings.
kings, flat on his face, worshiping Daniel, turns the whole kingdom over to Daniel and his three friends. Okay. Then you flip the page over and we're on Daniel chapter 3. And the king is the first thing, King Nebuchadnezzar, it starts with King Nebuchadnezzar. So somebody read 1 through 6.
We're on 3?
3, 1 through 6.
King Nebuchadnezzar made a gold statue 90 feet high and 9 feet wide. He set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. King Nebuchadnezzar sent word to assemble the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the rulers of the provinces to attend to the dedication of the statue King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all of the rulers of the provinces assembled for the dedication of the statue the king had set up. Then they stood before the statue Nebuchadnezzar had set up. A herald loudly proclaimed, "People of every nation and language, you are commanded, when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, drum, and every kind of music, you are to fall down and worship the gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. But whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a furnace of blazing fire."
Okay, describe the statue.
Big.
Huh?
Big and shiny,
Big.
big and shiny.
60 cubits, 90 feet high. Made of what?
Gold.
Gold. Solid gold. 6 cubits wide. That would be 9 feet wide. Now, this is after he had just proclaimed the Lord of lords and King of kings. He goes out and builds himself this big old statue. All right. For what purpose? That's not in there. What do you suppose the purpose was?
Influence.
Yeah, that's how to get people.
Influence. Who do you invite?
Yeah.
All the government officials.
All the important people all around. Not only in his kingdom, but some of these guys were from neighboring kingdoms. Look at that list there. The plain of Dura, the prince of Babylon, the province of Babylon. He summoned the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all other provincial officials to come to the dedication of the issue he had set up. So they all came. He did it to show up. He did it. How can he just go from one to the other in one verse?
I'd like to give him a hard time, but I've done that too.
Does anything like that happen today? Do you know people who go to church and say all the right things in church and Monday morning say all the wrong things? And then next Sunday they're right back in church, and sometimes they hold offices in the church. You know, we're supposed to be different than the world, not blend with them. Well, he's just a typical human being. Now, we all know dedicated Christians who are not like that. Okay, not everybody's like that. But we also know people who just live two worlds. Six days in the world, 1 day in the church, or 1 hour in the church anymore. It's not even the Lord's day, it's the Lord's hour in most churches, isn't it? So, nothing's changed. Let's face it, nothing's changed. The only difference from when I was a kid and who I am now is, people used to try to hide it, they don't even try to hide it anymore. I mean, they don't think there's anything wrong with being a different person on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and then you are on Sunday.
No shame. No shame.
Ashamed?
No shame.
No shame, no shame. There used to be shame. There's no shame now. Politically, what's a great example? Don't use names. We'll use them.
Several of them.
You remember when Nixon got caught? Now, maybe you don't remember.
We'll see.
But I remember, I mean, he was totally shamed. For a couple, 3 weeks, he wasn't seen in public, and then the next thing you heard was, he resigned from the presidency, and nobody hardly ever saw him again. He had a sense of shame. And yeah, he did wrong. But when he got caught, he felt like he had done something wrong. He felt guilty. And he would say, now they sit on TV and lie, and you know they're lying, and they swear to it. And there's no sense of shame whatsoever. Now, Nixon's no better or worse than they are today, except Nixon had a conscience and a sense of shame. Today, they have absolutely no shame at all. $30 billion went to Minnesota for child care, and there's not one child care office anywhere in Minneapolis. None. There's not a kid in any one of those places. $30 billion just vanished. There's no shame. Okay, so he builds a statue. So, and the most important people came. Number 3, what was the response? They all came, and they all stood before him.
I wonder why. Wonder why they all came. Like, there wasn't anybody that thought, that king, I'm a better king than that king, I'm not going.
Well, I know these guys were just of the world. They were also, it was, for them, it was also about influence. They wanted the king to like them.
They wanted to be, yeah.
They wanted the benefits. They were going with the flow. Except for 3. We're gonna come up on them in a little bit. Except for 3. They all came, they all witnessed it. But they, and most of them bought in. Number 4, the instructions were given. What were the instructions?
To fall on their face and worship the statue when the music was played.
As soon as you heard the noise, as soon as you heard the timbrels as soon as you heard the noise, fall down and worship. You ever been to a rock concert? I haven't, but I know people who have. I got my hearing disability in the military, but most people who've been a lot of times at rock concerts have hearing problems. There's a lot of noise. You know where that comes from? You know where that tradition comes from? Some of you read the book. Moloch. When they would sacrifice the babies, they would sacrifice them alive. So the baby would be taken behind the screen and they would play this loud music and they'd have this big celebration to cover up the screams of the babies.
I don't know how I forgot that, but I forgot it.
Well, it's something you really kind of want to
Yeah,
forget.
maybe.
I read it and I thought, oh man, I wish this wasn't stuck in my mind now. But, you know, they say an aborted baby doesn't feel any pain.
Yeah, right.
That's how long. And they covered it up when they were sacrificing their children. The Moloch, the priest of Moloch would have these big, loud music ceremonies to cover up the screams of the babies behind the curtains. That right there tells you they know it was wrong. Right. So they were supposed to bow down and they were supposed to worship and as soon as you hear the sounds of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set. Alrighty. Do you think these people, how could you do something like that and not have questions? Think about, let's put it in today's perspective, and let's compare the Jews with the Arabians. What battle has the Arabians ever won against the Jews? 1967, they were fighting 9 hostile countries surrounding them, all of them equipped by China and Russia, and Jewish was a new nation, had only been around for 20 years. They had a pathetic excuse for an army and an air force, a few of our obsolete jets. In 6 days, they wiped out 9 nations. If you were an Arab, wouldn't you stop and think, now wait a minute, where was Allah?
Yeah.
How is this possible that it could have possibly happened? I mean, wouldn't common sense say, stop, maybe we're doing something wrong? I mean, wouldn't you think? And then, you know, they got attacked again and again and again, and every time they were superior. Every time they had a low casualty count compared to a high casualty count. And then there's the whole Old Testament, which the Arabs have. Abraham was their father too. And yet, they continue to push forward, trusting in a false God. Allah Akbar, boom. I wonder 10 seconds later, after the flames cleared and they saw the new flames, what went through their mind? I told you before how Stalin died.
Yes.
We had some people that, well, when Stalin died, he had 40 people in the room with him. They came to watch. It was in that part of Europe, they would have a watch for the dead, and you would sit with them while they passed. He's breathing heavy and he's gasping for air, and he's within minutes of his last breath. And all of a sudden, his eyes popped open, and he pushed up on his elbows, and he got this look of horror on his face. And he said, "Oh my God, it is true." And he fell backwards. His face was so horrified by that. The guys that prepared him for funeral finally had to have a closed casket because they could not get the horror off of his face. It was like concrete. They could not fix the horror in his eyes. What did he say? I can guess. You can guess. But just think about Allah Akbar, I'm gonna get 70 virgins. Boom! Oops. You know, Christianity takes faith. But to believe in this takes a lot more faith than Christianity ever asked for. I mean, our God is real. He speaks to us. He guides us. He heals us. He prospers us. And that's all very real. We can all say, yes, that happened. Yes, that prayer was answered. Yes, that cancer disappeared. Yes, he fell off the ladder and fixed breakfast for his Sunday school class the next day. You've seen it. You've experienced it. Haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
Hasn't it been in your hands? Haven't you seen God provide over and over and over? That world's full of jerks. You can concentrate on them. I can look at them and I can say, that was wrong, and get mad. Or I can say, shame on you, I don't have time for this, you go on about life. You know, there's an old saying that used to be in this class, never let a jerk steal your peace.
Yeah.
Well, there's a world full of jerks out there, and they will do everything they can to steal your peace if you let them.
Amen.
So we just don't let them. Or if I catch you doing it, I'm gonna remind you. But these people are not using one brain cell. You know, yes, Christianity requires faith, but he didn't give you your brain to trade in for faith. There's also common sense involved. You ought to look at a situation, you can say, now what is wrong with this picture? And the Arabs just start doing it. So the response required, verse 6, what's the penalty for disobedience?
Thrown in the fire, in the furnace.
Fiery furnace, you're gonna be thrown into the fiery furnace and you're gonna be burned up, all right? Verse 7, the test. Oh, we haven't read verse 7. Yeah, somebody read 7.
Therefore, as soon as they heard the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, and all kinds of music, all the nations and peoples of every language fell down and worshipped the image of God, of gold, that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up.
Okay, not only was his people there, but who else was there? All nations and people of every language. He had not only brought his own people in to worship him, he had brought the whole rest of the world in to worship him. He was going to be the God. Now, just 6 verses ago, he was laying on his face before Daniel, and he was worshiping the one and only God, and he was proclaiming that God to be that God. But now, he's drawing everybody in to worship him. What could possibly go wrong? All right. Number 8.
At this time, some astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews. they said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "May the king live forever." Just 8?
8 and 9.
Okay.
Well, you did 8.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The astrologers show up and they say, whoops, did you notice the Jews? What's this about to begin with?
Control
Control of what?
of everything.
Of everything? Nebuchadnezzar's being used. And they know his arrogance. And they know just which switches to flip. They have him build this beautiful statue and have him bring everybody in to worship him. And then they say, did you notice the Jews? Remember what chapter 2 was about? All these people tried to figure out the dream, and they couldn't figure it out. And they were on death's threshold. Nebuchadnezzar said, kill them all. Didn't he? And now, they get him to build this statue, and they butter him up, and they flatter him, and they knew the Jews weren't going to do it. They knew the Jews weren't going to do it. That says something for these guys. If you were, we were in a situation where we were looking at people to do some work on the church, not this church, that church I was in at the time. And we had about 5 different people on the table. And there were some higher bids and some lower bids, and the lower bids were almost too low. We were discussing, and people would say things like, I would be careful about that one. I know some people he's worked for. And then sometimes he said, and I remember the second one, he said, he won't keep that bid. He raises every bid that he ever gives anybody, and he has some excuse for why it has to be done. He'll find something wrong, he'll do this, he'll do that. Don't do that. And they ended up not picking the lowest bid, they picked the second highest bid, because somebody at the table said, I know him. We will be happy if he does it. And it's not that much difference. That should be the kind of person we are. They should be able to look at that and say, he's the right choice, I don't care what the money is. Because he won't cheat us. They should know us that way. They should know that we're dependable. They should know that we're going to show up. They should know. These guys, these 4 Jews were that way. And why did these satraps and all these other people, why did they set up this situation to entrap them?
So their hands were clean. So their hands were clean.
Get rid of them, get rid of.
I think they were jealous.
Jealous? Yeah, all those answers are good. But bottom line is, the J word pops up. They were jealous. Why? Because as soon as they answered the dream, what did Nebuchadnezzar do?
Put them in control.
Put them in charge of everything, including these guys. And they said, we don't want to serve them. and they set up a trap to wipe them out. They set up a trap. So that's the motive. And what's the next move? They also have entrapped Nebuchadnezzar along with these guys. What's 10 say? 10 says, Your Majesty has issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound of horn and all that fall down and worship the gold, and whoever does not fall down will be thrown into the furnace. Back then, there was a legal system basically set up by the Medes and the Persians. And if the king signed a decree, it could not be violated or changed or ignored in any way, even by the king. America would be a little better if we had kind of that thing today. But Nebuchadnezzar was trapped in the same web that they trapped the Jews in, because they knew that he wouldn't be able to give them leniency. They knew he would have to throw them in the fiery furnace, or he could be impeached and removed from office. So he had to do it. See, it was a big conspiracy to get rid of the Jews, and they used Nebuchadnezzar as the driving force to do it. Because his word would be dirt if he didn't do it. 11, second reminder. And that whoever does not fall down in worship will be thrown into the furnace. He said, not only do you have to deal with them, you have to throw them into the fiery furnace, because that is what you said. How many people do you know that are good to their word? You know without any doubt, if he says he's going to show up, he's going to show up.
Not many.
Not very many.
How many can you count them on your two hands?
No. No,
Can you count them on one hand?
maybe.
Grandpa used to have a saying, when it's all said and done, you look back on your life, you're going to have 5 real friends. You're going to be able to count all your real friends on one hand.
Lucky. I think if you're lucky.
And now I'm at 80 years old now in a couple months, and Grandpa was right. So the Chaldeans charged Daniel's 3 friends with 2 crimes. What was first crime? Verse 12. A. They paid no attention to the king. They paid no attention. And number 2, they were not obedient. Does the Bible say we're supposed to obey the law? Yes? Yes.
Which law?
I say, it's supposed to obey the law as long as it does not go against what God has.
But what do the words say? Obey the law? They say submit to
to it.
the law. Not obey. Submit. Here they could not submit. They could not be obedient. So you're going to find out next week that they did submit to the law. They didn't argue. They didn't ask for leniency. They didn't beg. They didn't run. They didn't hide. They said, okay, throw us in the furnace. That's where we'll be next week. They didn't obey, but they submitted. I was over in Mitchell one time, and I stopped to get a drink at one of the, at the McDonald's. I'd been working on a house over there, and I stopped to get some drink at McDonald's, and I undid my seatbelt. And I got the drink, and I paid the girl, and there were cars behind me, so I pulled out, and I pulled out on the highway, and I turned, and there's a sheriff's deputy coming toward me. And he turned on these lights, and I went by, and he whirled around and came up behind me, and I thought, oh, I didn't put the seatbelt back on. So I put the seatbelt back on. He pulls up, and he said, you know why I stopped you? I said, well, I think so. I said, how did you know I didn't have my seatbelt on? He said, well, that shiny little buckle was tied. I knew it was. So I went and paid my $25 fine. I was guilty. But I submitted to the law and paid the fine. These guys could not be obedient, but they accepted the punishment and trusted God, and we'll find out next week how.